Hi, I'm Dan Satterberg, King County Prosecuting Attorney, and welcome to another edition of the Prosecutor's Partners. This is a show where we introduce you to some of the people and organizations making a difference here in King County to make our community safer and healthier and happier. Today we're in front of Seattle's Union Gospel Mission. It was established in 1932 in the midst of the Great Depression, a place where people who were down and out in Seattle could come and get a meal and have their souls uplifted by songs of faith. Today, over 80 years later, Seattle's Union Gospel Mission is still an important partner in our community, and there's something else going on in here that you should find out about.
Legal services.
So Open Door Legal Services is here to provide legal work primarily for homeless people or people who are in danger of becoming homeless, to help resolve the legal issues that they're facing as they're trying to get more stable in their lives.
David, why would a homeless person need a lawyer?
What I usually tell people is that the complexity of your legal issues is in no way correlated to income, So, and in fact, it can be complicated by lack of income, because if you don't have enough money to take care of your issues, then they can really get compounded. So, really, some common issues that we see, for instance, somebody gets a traffic ticket. For you or I, you get a $100 traffic ticket, it might ruin your night. You're probably still going to have your latte the next morning. But for our clients, state disability is $197 a month if the state has determined that you can't work to support yourself. So you might be trying to live on less than $200 a month. That $100 traffic ticket can be devastating. So imagine, if you got a traffic ticket and it was half of your income and you didn't have any savings or anybody that would loan you money. Obviously you can't pay it. It goes to collections, interest starts stacking up, and then your driver's license gets suspended. Now, if you get caught driving, it's a criminal charge. The fines can be up to $1,000. You could face jail time, warrants for your arrest, that sort of thing. You can't work if your job requires you to have a license. So all kinds of problems can start to stack up really, really quickly.
A lot of times people who are homeless or bouncing around from shelter to shelter, they defer their medical treatment. I assume they defer paying attention to their legal issues too.
Definitely. If you're not sure where your next meal is going to come from, if you're not sure where you're going to sleep tonight, then it's really hard to deal with your legal issues. So we tend to help folks who have gotten over some of those primary issues. They're usually in programs where they're in a more long-term environment. It's definitely transitional. They're still homeless, but at least they know where their next meal is going to come from. And then they can start thinking a little bit more long-term. The issues that we help them with typically would take anywhere between 6 months and a year in order to resolve.
One of the things I'm struck by is every year 8,000 people are released from prison in the state of Washington, and they're given $40 and a bus ticket, and we wish them good luck. I expect some of them end up on the streets and end up in your clinic.
Most of our clients who are coming in have some sort of criminal history. Many of them have been released somewhat recently from incarceration. And even if not from long-term incarceration in prison, from kind of revolving incarceration in jail for these misdemeanor cases, and a lot of them are small cases, such as the driving with license suspended, minor theft cases, prostitution, those sorts of things, that don't put them in for a long time, but they interrupt your life enough that it's really hard to get any momentum going.
So you don't provide the criminal defense that they might need, but are there other sort of collateral issues that tend to congregate with somebody who's been in and out of prison?
The biggest one, as far as on the criminal side goes, is just warrants. Most jurisdictions, if you have a misdemeanor warrant issued for your arrest, you lose your public defender. So at the very time that you're actually most likely to go to jail on your case is the time that you don't have advice of counsel. It also gets further complicated if you have warrants in multiple jurisdictions, because no public defender will help you with the entire picture of dealing with those multiple jurisdictions. Each one helps with their own jurisdiction. And that's a really big deal because, let's say I had a client who had warrants in 5 different jurisdictions. You have to sit your jail time in one jurisdiction, finish that case before you then get transported to the next case. So even if the judge releases you here, then you get on a bus, you go to the next place. You can actually spend more time incarcerated just being transferred between jurisdictions than you would have on your sentence on all of those cases.
It's certainly a lot more time in jail than somebody who had a house, had a stable address.
Yeah, more time meaning, somebody who had a house and a stable address would probably spend 0 time in jail on most of these charges. whereas our clients could end up spending significant time if they don't get good advice and good help. And one of the huge impacts is not just the amount of jail time that they spend, but it's really the amount of time that they spend running, because they don't have good advice and they don't feel confident about how they're supposed to deal with the system. And so the natural human impulse is to avoid it. And so then they can spend literally years with these warrants hanging over their heads, which again, it makes it hard to get a job, if you can't clear a background check, or if you do get a job and then you get arrested on your warrant and you don't show up to work that day, then the next time you're released from jail a couple of days later, you're unemployed again. It can just really have this very disruptive effect in somebody who's trying to get some stability in their life.
And by the time they finally figure out that there's an open-door legal clinic that's there to help them, they might have decades worth of messy legal issues behind them.
Oftentimes they do. Yeah, we'll see people with pages of these minor criminal charges, or even just traffic infractions holding their driver's license, and it can take quite a bit of time to unravel things.
Some of the people that you deal with, I imagine, are entitled to benefits. Maybe they were veterans, or maybe they were entitled to Social Security. Is that a big part of your job too?
We help them get connected with those services, and sometimes we'll help them remove barriers to keep them from getting their benefits. So we had one client, it was just a horrible case. The client was deaf and had some other disabilities that earned him Social Security. But the Social Security Administration thought that he had a felony warrant for his arrest, which would disqualify him from benefits. So they sent him a notice and said, you don't get your benefits anymore. Because of his deafness, he had a really hard time interacting with the system and figuring out what was going on. He lost his benefits, and he lived in Tent City for 5 years before he found his way to our office. With a couple of phone calls, we found out that the warrant for his arrest was actually a misdemeanor, not a felony. And within weeks, he was hooked back up on benefits, and within a month, he was back in stable housing. And that was 5 years lost, that he could have been housed the entire time on the benefits he was entitled to, but he didn't have the wherewithal to be able to correct a simple bureaucratic mistake.
But you did, and you had people here who were willing to help him, and that's got to make you feel pretty good.
It does. When you see somebody who's coming out of homelessness, coming out of oftentimes addiction or mental health issues, and you see them gain that stability and get housed, it's just a great feeling.
So you told me the Open Door Legal Clinic's been around about 15 years, and you've been doing this for about 7 or 8 years. You've got a staff on board who can help?
We do. When I started, I was the only attorney, and I had a half-time legal assistant. Now we have 2 other staff attorneys working with me. And our legal assistant is now bilingual, so she functions a dual role as an interpreter as well. So we've really been able to expand our services to the Spanish-speaking community. We're doing more immigration work, which can be really important for some of these folks. And have really been able to expand our services pretty dramatically.
There's a lot of lawyers in Seattle. Do you have some volunteers who help out?
Lots, and they're a huge help, both lawyers and also law students, mostly from Seattle U and from the University of Washington. The volunteers that come in will meet with the clients, help us with the interviewing process, which is very time consuming to really sit down with somebody and pay attention to them and listen to their story and give them their due. And it's great because we can use volunteers who don't have expertise in these particular legal areas. Some of which there are no private sector lawyers, because if you had money enough to hire a lawyer, you wouldn't have the problems that we see, that some of our clients face. So we can take these volunteers who have no experience, but they know how to interact with somebody, they know how to show compassion, and then they also know how to put on their lawyer hat and issue spot and really boil down the story down into the key legal issues. And then they can come out and talk to us, and we can say, oh, this is how we would resolve that issue, and help them walk the client through.
So the attorneys are learning new skills while they're helping people who desperately need the help.
Absolutely. They're learning about areas of law that they might have never seen in their regular practice. And then they're also working with people and seeing people that you just want to interact with every day, and really getting the experience of seeing the humanity of that.
Here we are, a block from the original Skid Row in Seattle. Does that mean something to you as you're helping people get back on their feet?
It definitely does, and it's part. What I like about my job is how we're part of the much larger organization of the Seattle's Union Gospel Mission that is doing so many things for clients. And the Seattle's Union Gospel Mission started here back in 82 years ago, right here on Skid Row. And back then, the idea was, let's get some housing, let's get some food to these folks and take care of their basic needs. And we're still doing that 82 years later. But it's expanded so much to provide services like legal services, like dental services, addiction recovery counseling, medical assistance when they have medical problems that are difficult to handle when you're homeless. So many different services to provide that really give a holistic solution to the problems that our clients are facing.
Well, David, thank you for being on the Prosecutor's Partner Show and for all the work that you do to help our community become healthier and safer and happier.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.